Thank you, everybody. Thank you for inviting me, and to Michelle for asking me. Michelle doesn't know what I'm going to speak about exactly, because in the best tradition of designers, I gave her my presentation at 10 o'clock this morning. Apologies. So I thought, what should I talk about? And Michelle invited me and said, come and talk about something. And I said, okay. And I had a week thinking. And then we had a Skype, and I said, I'll talk about this. That's great. Which was good, because I wasn't sure if what I was going to talk about really was going to be suitable. So in terms of Ruth's presentation, I'm going to do the completely opposite. I'm going to look at a much wider view of things and then bring it back to bear on really what we're here to talk about. So I've said, watch out, design, Europe is coming. And I'll sort of explain why I'm talking about that in a moment. Just a small amount of background. So I'm head of a department called the Institute of Contemporary Arts at Lancaster University. So my office is one of those windows. I'm a trained product designer. That's my background. I worked in industry as a product designer, and I've taught design for a little over 15 years now. But I still enjoy the rare occasion where I get to be creative. But now what I have to do is apply my creativity, not so much to designing products, but designing solutions to problems. And those problems are often way beyond just a tangible outcome. So I am based in Lancaster Institute of Contemporary Arts, and my research is in a group called Imagination Lancaster, and it's a multidisciplinary design research group that looks at people, products, places, and their interactions. When we come up with that, we realised it's about anything in the world will fit into that in one way or another. So we were saying, we do stuff with design, and we hope we do it quite well. That's sort of what we approach. And this is an event we would have had. So we're very much outward-facing, and we work with lots of organisations in the UK and internationally on just different things that we believe design can help with. So today, I'm going to talk about a project called Design for Europe. And why I thought I'd talk about this is it's about the realization that design is good. So I sort of think that. But what we've got to do is to ensure that other people think design is good. And it's not that it's good for good's sake. It's good for business. It's good for the public sector. It's good for policymakers. And Europe has begun to realize that. So I'm going to put my hand up and say, 5 years ago, I knew nothing about policy. I know a little more about policy now, but I know very much about design's role in policy. And it's quite interesting seeing policymakers who are beginning to warm to design. And it's not really, you don't think those two things go together. So I'm going to talk about Design for Europe. Design for Europe is a European funded project. 3 years. It started January last year and runs for the next 3 years, which is to promote design across Europe. It is the European Commission's project to promote design, and it is looking to gather the state of the art in design across Europe and share that such that all of Europe can learn and move forward. So what I'm going to do is talk about different examples of things, where the project came from, a little bit to do with that, and then some examples towards the end of some of the projects that we're showcasing. I haven't shown Philip's project because he's going to talk about it, but there are a number of them. And I'm going to end on a call to arms, so I'll give you a bit of notice. Please come and talk to me over lunch. Please ask me questions. I want to know what you're doing so we can showcase it on our website and for all of Europe to see. So please come and talk to me. So what is Design for Europe? I'm going to look at that. What we've been up to for the last year. It's interesting doing a project where you start from scratch, because you spend the first 3 months thinking, oh my God, did we really write that in a bid a year ago? How are we going to do that? Oh, did we say we're going to go and see so many people? So then what you try and do is to operationalize that. And that's been a really valuable process because we had to make real what we talked about and what we tried to achieve. So this project is 4 million euros. And on European standing, that's nothing. 4 million for design is a really major achievement, I believe. And this is part of a larger agenda, which I'm going to talk about. And how can you engage at the end? I'm going to ask you that. So please do that. Just going to see where I am for time. As I said, so designers began to be recognised at senior levels in Europe that it's good. And, in the recession, perhaps design could help Europe move forward. Perhaps it could be good for the economy. And much of what I'm going to talk about today ultimately leads back to economic drivers. but design contributes to the social good as well as the economic good. So design is very much seen by senior people in Europe now as a driver for innovation, but it's about people. So it's not a technological innovation that they're interested in, it's about people-centered innovation that puts people at the heart of things and addresses the problems that people have. While technology is hugely important, it's about harnessing the right technology rather than starting with the technology and saying, hey, how can I sell this? So Ruth's point earlier about knowing what you're going to do, it's not about selling something that nobody wants. It's about understanding what people want and then addressing that need. And that's beyond businesses, that's in the public sector as well. So design is increasingly being used to address the challenges in the public sector across Europe, whether that's in health, whether that's in education. So it's a way of addressing problems as well as a way of producing outcomes and objects. So, and to bring real value for the users, that's the key thing. So that's the starting point. How do we sort of get there? So we're in 2015. If I'd done this presentation a little while ago, it would have been very different, but it started a number of years ago. So 2010, it's 5 years waiting just to get to this point. So that the European Commission didn't have a resource for design. And if you look at the figures, if you look at them across Europe or even in individual countries, the amount of benefit that design brings to economies is huge. In the UK, it's one of the fastest growing sectors. It's grown by 30-something% over a few years. There's figures out recently. Across Europe, it's a huge part of the economy. European Commission, nothing, no resource. We did a survey and we typed in design about 2 years ago, and I haven't got the figures here, and you type in design, and when you actually look at it, there were about something like 123 references to design across the whole of the European Commission's web platforms. And then when you actually looked at it, a lot of them weren't about design. It was about designing a new plan rather than actually anything to do with design. So a very small amount. But there was a political commitment at European level. What that did, that put into policy European Design Innovation Initiative, the EDII, which I'll talk about in a moment, because the EDII was instrumental in me being here today and the projects that have come out of that. And the first thing the EDII did, they said, let's have some people who understand design, let's get them together. And they brought together a group called the European Design Leadership Board. And they were from all across Europe, and they were representative of all different forms of design. And I know a couple of people that were on that board, one of my colleagues was on it, and they were very much saying, how do we, as a region, how does Europe understand design better? So Ruth was talking earlier about a small region here. They were talking about the whole of Europe. How does Europe understand design better? And once they understand it better, how then can they use it? So from that, a European Design Leadership Board, a report, and all of the things I'm going to talk about are on the Design for Europe website, and I'm going to give you that URL at the end. So they created a design for prosperity and growth. So they were saying that design can add to the European prosperity and growth. So it's not just, so the prosperity is economic, but also social and cultural prosperity, and growth in terms of financial, but also in terms of a broader use of design to ensure that Europe is growing in a sustainable way. The action plan came out of that, and there is a series of points. That was in 2013, and one of the things in the action plan was to set up a project that looked at providing resource for all of Europe, and it's really important, it's all of Europe rather than the countries that maybe you expect to use design well. And there was a project, and we were very lucky to be part of the leading consortium that won that bid, and that became Design for Europe. So that's quite a long drawn-out process. Between 2012 and 2014, the EDII, so the European Design Innovation Initiative, supported 6 other projects, smaller projects, around about €1 million each. And those then looked at different dimensions of design. So it was very much about gathering evidence base for people in senior positions in terms of policymakers to have the evidence to make the case in countries and at a European level. I'll talk about a couple of those projects. I was involved in one, but I'm not going to go into too much depth. So that's how we got there. So in January, we found out in November, and we started in January. So Alex is going to talk later about Irish Year of Design and how you find out, oh, it's going to happen, and then it's got to happen really quickly, and it's always a challenge to mobilise. So, yeah, and they said this is some of the European Commission's policy. This was the key thing in terms of the flagship initiative, so the Innovation Union. And as I said, and I still bear to this point, I didn't know anything about policy when I started. I've learned a little bit now. I do understand quite a lot more. And it is one of the most complicated things in the world. European policy, I do not understand how they get anything done, because the bureaucracy is incredible. But if you get certain things into policy, things do happen. So in 2011, it actually happened in 2012, the Commission will set up the European Design Leadership Board. And then, as I said, this is how we've got to where we are. And the lady in the middle is Deborah Doughton, who was the then president of BEDA, which is a Bureau of European Design Agencies. Deborah is the chair of British Design Association, Design Business Association, sorry, in the UK, and that's a body for organisations and companies that use design. And this is the moment. This is the giving the check moment. This is the photo opportunity to say, okay, design is now important. But the reason I've sort of did a little bit of background is that picture represents a huge amount of things. Without that, many things wouldn't happen and design wouldn't have been supported in lots of European funding. So it's important because that's permeating across the European Commission. And then they start that, and because of that you get the wider use of design as well as other non-technological innovations. One of the key drivers of developing high-value products, increasing productivity, improving resource efficiency. That's the European Commission sort of then almost reflecting back in its policies and in its publications what it thinks about design. And as I said, a huge thing. And it's a little bit like an iceberg. This is the little bit on the top, but there's so much that took effort to get to this point. It's incredible. So I know I've spoke to some people who have been involved in lobbying senior policymakers, and they're saying that this started in the early noughties and it's taken until now. So one of the things I have learned about policy is it's not an agile machine. So out of that, and this is the last bit of the background, and then I'll really talk about the project a little bit more. So an action plan for design-driven innovation. So design is a driver for innovation in its many forms. And that, as I said, can be a product, a service, it could be an innovation in terms of healthcare, it could be about education, transport. It's about identifying ways of doing things better using design, often through a design process that is very much applied to an intangible or a wicked unknown problem, and using that to try and understand it. So it goes across many, many examples, and I'm just going to show a few in a minute. But so promote understanding of design's impact on innovation. When you look at European policy, loads of innovation policy, hardly any design policy. So innovation is, I guess, the catch-all, and design is in this somewhere. So design is often a subset of innovation. Promote design-driven innovation in industries and in all industries to strengthen Europe's competitiveness. So Europe is saying design can make Europe better. And promote the adoption of design to drive renewal in the public sector. So the challenges all countries are facing in the public sector, can design help that? And I haven't put too many examples on here today just because I didn't want to sort of flood you with lots of examples, but and also wanted you to go and look at the website. So design in public sector, design being used as a way of addressing the challenges the public sector faces, really, really key area for Europe, because they're saying that is a way that we can differentiate ourselves and we can ensure that we are doing things better. So that's the background. Sorry, it took a little while, but I thought it'd be good to explain how long it's taken us to get here. Design for Europe, this is what it has to do, and this is what you can judge us on 31st of December next year. So to accelerate design-driven innovation in order to boost innovation, growth, and job creation. So we were having a chat at dinner last night, and we have had this. The European Commission said, "How many jobs have you created?" And we're like, it doesn't quite work like that yet. It takes a while, and we've got a series of things that are happening. So we don't. Hopefully, from me speaking today, a job will be created, and I'll say we created one today. My speech, my talk, created a job. It doesn't quite work like that, does it? So that's what we're aiming to do. That's what we set ourselves to do, and that's what they agreed for us to do. And we do that by raising awareness. This is one of the ways of raising awareness. It's going and speaking to people. It's not just having a website. It's very much an integrated set of activities and events of how design-driven innovation already increases efficiencies. The already bit is what is going on already, what is the best practice, what are good examples. So harnessing creativity will become, I haven't asked yet, but will become one of the case studies saying how it's doing it already. So the benefit of me coming here is I get to have a chat to people, and in a couple of weeks we'll get that on the website. So I'll be maybe flipping it round and saying this is how regions are doing this already. Public services and drives business growth across Europe. So it's across a range of things. That's what the project is set to do. And how are we going to do that? So we're going to do it by originally, so that I love Europe. They have these love acronyms. So EDIP, European Design Innovation Platform. That's what this project is. And when they said that to us in the age-old way that designers do, we went, really? Is that what you want us to do? So we called it Design for Europe. And yes, very tongue-in-cheek. And so there were times where we were thinking we're going to have Terry Wogan speaking and it's going to be people singing on stage, but no, it's not that. Well, how are we going to do it? So that we are delivering the vision of the action plan that I talked about. It is a website, but it's more than a website. It's a platform that has opportunities, not just to broadcast things out, not just for us to say, hey, there's a case study, somebody's done this, or I went and talked here. It's about an interactive process by which we can have a dialogue between people, between regions, between sectors, and ensuring that there's an opportunity for all of us to learn from everybody across Europe, rather than, oh, they do it really well in a country, should we do that? Context is all important. So it's about policymakers, it's about enterprises and business, sort of, and the public sector. The really key audience is about enterprises. The European Commission believes that design can help, often SMEs actually, maybe not micro enterprises, but as well as that, design can really help SMEs to do things better, and that will make Europe more competitive, ensure job creation and growth, etc., etc. So that's our approach. And we're doing that in a number of ways. And I just, this is my rock into the water metaphor. So at the center of it is a platform. And that web platform has many things on it, and it's growing at the moment, and it will very much have a lot of information as time goes on. And that then helps us to be able to create online communities. So communities of interest around special themes, around, it could be regions, it could be countries, it could be sectors, it could be the target audiences of policymakers, public and private sector. But very much an online community, because while it's great to get out and see people, and I'll see how many, show where we've been in the last year, we can only go to so many places. We have networks and we're linking into multiple networks, but there is a limit to how many times we can go and speak to people, and actually how much time people have for us to go and speak to them. So the online community is really important. We would like you to be a part of that. You can comment on things, you can get involved, you can register. I'll talk about that as my call to arms at the end. And then different engagement activities, whether they be workshops that we're running, whether they be events that we attend and speak at, whether we have a summit in Brussels on the 7th of May, and that's very much about engaging the policymakers, because what we've discovered is if the policymakers across all of the countries and the MEPs are engaged, then there's an opportunity for that to trickle back to the countries so they can do our job for us almost. So we've got quite a lively summit on the 7th of May. I was in Copenhagen last couple of days because we had a big project meeting, and I wouldn't say everything's resolved, but there was a lot of activity, we'll say. So yeah, so we're furiously planning and finalising things. So that's our idea. We're throwing the rock into the pool. We're throwing the web platform out to you, and then we want you to engage, and we're going to on online communities and engagement activities, and then we want that to multiply. So I didn't put the slide on here. When you throw throw a rock into a pool and you get the ripples, you throw another one, all of that interaction and turbulence. We want that. We want to engage with other networks, other groups, and ensure that we're trying to get the message that design can do some good things for people. This is the consortium, so there are 14 partners. It's led by the UK Design Council, and there were multiple bids that went in. And Lancaster is the second partner. I've done them alphabetically to be politically correct. Lancaster's second partner. We're responsible for all of the research around the platform and around these things. So we are integrating into all of the other work packages and all of the activities that are going on. And some of these partners have a major role, some have a smaller role. And it's important that we've got a geographic spread, but we've got 14 partners. And there are more than 14 countries, and we've got 3 partners, or 4 in total in the UK actually. That was just happened chance. It was because we wanted to work with the best people. So who did we know was really good at something? So Danish Design Centre is really well known for its engagement with business. So they're one of the partners. Politecnico di Milano in Italy, very much engaged with regions. So there was a little bit of who was willing to be involved, who were the right people. So that's the partnership, and yeah, so those are sort of the people who are really trying to make this happen, and led by the Design Council. But it's absolutely not a UK-based project. It's a European project. So let me see how will it be useful to you? Hopefully some of this will be useful to you, and I will bring this back to something that's a bit more tangible towards the end. So we develop a series of tools. These tools are going to help the 3 key stakeholder groups of businesses, public sector, and policymakers. And we do that in different ways. And these tools are beginning now, just about to become available on the platform. And it's about then you being able to use those things. So some of the issues that Ruth was talking about, yes, we would take you through some of those stages about ensuring that you have an offer that is defined, making sure that you stick to that and you don't waver from it. It's very easy to forget what you're good at. So there are all these series of tools, and then there are case studies that we're doing at the moment of where those tools are being used. So you didn't want to just put up a set of tools and say, hey, go and use them. We wanted to show how they've already been used. So a little bit like my iceberg metaphor, the platform is a bit like that at the moment. We've got a little bit on show and a lot all in process and ready to come out. So businesses developing great products, services, and brands. That's what we're trying to help people in business to do. And that's at any scale. That can be from a micro enterprise, a startup, right through to multinationals. So while our audience is more focused on SMEs, it doesn't mean to say we're neglecting multinationals and larger organizations. Public sector, improve the experience and efficiency of public services. And anybody that we all use public sector services in one way or another, and we all think, why is it like that? So I've got a little I've got a 3.5-year-old, and he had a checkup. I got 4 letters from the NHS. 3 of them are identical. I'm like, why? How is that happening? So one of my case studies is going to be my local hospital, I think. He's fine. He was just but it's crazy, some of the things that happen. And then policymakers, about trying to shape policy, help policymakers understand and support innovation and growth. And often we don't use design in some of these terms because in policy context, innovation seems to be a bit more of a buzzword. So these tools are very simple, practical tools about some downloads you can fill in through to much more integrated things. And over the next year, 18 months, we will be releasing those at different points. And those then will help all different regions and sectors across Europe to move forward. And we've got this sort of a little model. This is a little bit like the ripples, but it includes some of the, I guess, the key stakeholders. So we've got the EDII projects, the European Design Innovation projects. There's a huge amount of knowledge in those, so we're drawing that out. We've got universities. A lot of good things go on at universities. And we want to draw that out. Where is the best understanding of the use of design as a driver for innovation? Business networks and businesses. We're engaging with all different types of networks, trying to understand what's going on. And innovation age, these networks, labs, different countries and different regions have different ways of dealing with this, so support networks, etc. That's really important to us, to be able to plug into things that exist. Design centres and networks, so that again, there are these networks that exist, but nothing is tying them together. So the Danish Design Centre is a good example, really well respected, but not all countries have that equivalent. So how do we deal with that? And then governments, and trying to ensure that we have measures to show that design is good. So one of the things I've learned, another thing I've learned about policy making, so one, it's not very fast. Two, you need to show them evidence, and they want numbers. They don't want stories. They want it to say, it has increased it by X%. And that's quite hard because a lot of that data isn't available. So we've worked very hard and lobbied to get some of the pan-European studies that happen, surveys that happen. There are some questions on design now. And again, that's taken a number of years. So that's some of the pockets of interest and expertise of some of the stakeholders. So I'm going to go through some of the highlights, and I'm going to go through this quickly and then end up on some case studies and my call to arms. So European Design Innovation Platform. So that was launched in March last year. So at that point, we hadn't figured out, we hadn't called it, Design for Europe at that point. We knew we wanted to change the name. So we did it like a little design project. So we did some research, we really ensured that we understood what was already out there. How were we going to differentiate ourselves? So we probably did something very similar to what Ruth did. And we did it quite quickly, in like 2 weeks, and we were all, we were together, we went apart, came back together, and we had to pitch our proposals for the name and the ideas. And in the end, it was, there was a consensus around Design for Europe. So it was launched in Brussels. There's some of the video online if you want to see that. And I went to Brussels, I think it was 7 times last year, I'm not quite sure. Because that's where the hub of policymaking is in Europe, so we had to get them on board. Now we're very much moving out away from Brussels as much as we can, apart from we're having the summit there to ensure that we get the policymakers. And we launched then a little microsite. This was the first page from the website, still called, I think we had the project called Design for Europe. The European Commission weren't sure if they were going to let us call it that. So that took about 2 months for them to agree that they would change the name of the platform, not the project. The project is still the European Design Innovation Platform. So that was launched, and then we're trying to get people involved. I'll mention one of these. So this is one of the European Design Innovation projects I was involved called DEEP, which was Designing European Policy. And this was looking at the role of design in European policy, but particularly from a design policy perspective, i.e., were there policies to support design? Hardly any. That's how we did the study. And our final conference was in Poznan in Poland, and this is on the your far right, on the right. The one with the gentleman with less hair is John Mathers, who's the CEO of the UK Design Council, and then Robin Edman, who's next to him, is the Swedish equivalent. He's the CEO of SVID, so the Swedish Industrial Design Foundation or something like that. So that was one of the events. So we were already bringing things together. We had like 150 businesses and policymakers and public sector organizations there. It's really interesting trying to say about the project. So all of the projects are very much getting out and doing those things. And yeah, then we had, this is Martyn and Beatrice from Polytechnic Milano presenting, I think, I'm not sure where this one was. There's so many events that we've had. I'll show a map in a moment of where we've had them. And we've been on the road quite a lot. So we've been going out and talking to people, understanding what we want to understand what the real issues are rather than what we think they are. So yeah, we've been to the RADI conference, we've been to all these different places. And then we launched, I think, our mailing list, which I'm going to invite you all to join up to. And that's really quickly developed. The number of people who are interested. And we've got a geographic view on that. It's not just Europe. So we've got people all over the world who are involved. Something like 1,500, 1,800 at the moment registered on that. And when you see how, where it started and where it is. So I think this is the first newsletter. The little circle was 542 subscribers at that point. And I think we launched about a month before, so we've gone quite quickly. And that's been important. And then, so if you get involved, you get newsletters telling you what's going on, where we're going to be, and inviting you to things, etc., etc. So there are a number of ways. So this is the first part of my call to arms. Please sign up. And as I said, yeah, these are just different places where we've been, different people, and I didn't put any photos of me. I've spoken at a couple of places. So it's very much getting out there, telling people what's going on, and asking and saying, what do you need? And that's the important part, because without that, we could be doing the wrong thing. So I will be, I'm hoping people are going to come and speak to me over lunch, or ask me some questions at the end. Yeah, and so there's lots of these, and then the first newsletters go out, the next newsletters, and these are all archived so you can see them. And so we do a bit of thinking. So there's Baz from Nesta on the end, scratching his head, because Baz likes drawing. So whenever you talk, he draws what you talk. It's great. It's insane. So most of the time we end up drawing what people are saying, and then we try and make sense of it. So so we've been here, there, and everywhere. And this was an important event, actually, because this was in London, the Design Council, just before Christmas. It was in November. And on this side, the gentleman standing up with a suit on is Christian Basson. And Christian had edited a book called Design for Policy. And that was how design is being used to shape policy. And Christian is now the CEO of the Danish Design Centre. He had changed jobs. He used to work for the Danish government, and now he's CEO. And he was in Copenhagen this week, and we had, he was telling us what was going on. So he's presenting, and John Mathers is looking stern, thinking what's going on. So there are now things that are happening that people can engage with and access, and some of the chapters are going to be available online. It's taken a little bit of negotiating with Gower, the publishers. So some really interesting examples of things that are going on, and we're drawing upon that amongst other things. So the event. This isn't quite up to date because there's a couple of things going on this week that I haven't got in here, but we've been in front of over 2,000 people over the last year, and that's really since Easter last year, so not since January last year, because we didn't do anything the first couple of months, or we didn't go anywhere, we just spoke to people. And we organise events, we present at events, we've attended events, and that's all to draw things that are happening. And the future events is, I think, this is until the end of May. We had a meeting. So something like 28, 30 events over the last year. And we've got a lot more planned, because we always plan to do slightly less in the first part of the project, so until we could get out there. And then what we've got, so this is Europe, and then we've got the geographic spread of, we've got an expert group, i.e. we've got experts from all of these different countries. And we couldn't have experts from every country, because it just wasn't possible. But we also have country managers, people who are on the ground in those countries, finding out what's going on in the different networks. So that gives us a good understanding of where we are in terms of what we've been doing at events and who we've been speaking to. So we've got social media. So so it's design_Europe. It's all on the website. We've got, 8,000 people, I think it is at the minute, in various guises. So whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, and I will try and tweet some things as we go throughout today. So I'm just going to go through a couple of examples of things that are going on. I'm just trying to explain what's happening on the website, and then I'll wrap up. So I'm going to try and finish 1:45 and get on time, Michelle. This is the homepage of the website. I've just taken some screen grabs, and it's very much about showcasing what's going on. It's about businesses, it's about public sector, and it's about policymakers. So you can look at it in that way. You can look at it through themes and various approaches. So it could be the region thing doesn't work yet. It will kick in just after Easter. So there's a lot of development that's happening. So you can look at it from your region. You can look at it from a perspective of business. You can look at it from some of the themes, as I said, that will come up. And you can go through that, and each section has different approaches. So Christina wrote something about business, and she's a Danish Design Centre, and it's about better products, stronger brands, new markets, trying to help people from a business perspective. So we've got those three perspectives. And when you go through that, so I'm here today, so we tell people where we're going to be, and as much as we can, try and ensure that people can sign up to those things. So it's trying to build that online community, so it's the place to go to. We've also got things to do with insight and discussion. So some of the things are coming out of the activities that we've been doing. So we've been having discussions, and we're having discussions in one country and saying, hey, wouldn't that be good for another country to know that? So the insight and discussions pieces are various ways of us saying, this is great over here. Does anybody else want to know about it? And we will keep doing that and try and do that over time. Let's go back. Sorry. There's what we've tried to do, as I said, policymakers love numbers. I've learned that. So we've tried to use our activities to ensure that we have evidence of quantitative data that shows what's really going on in the use of design. So how many new products have been developed, how much has that resulted in increased income, how many jobs have been created, and those sorts of things. So there's different ways we can provide information. And within that then, you can see if an approach was used, what was the benefit in that context. So, and that is something that I guess Phil will talk about, because I haven't shown his, but one of his case studies is on here. And then we got resources. So all of the things I've talked about, any document I've mentioned is on there, and you can just go and download them. And then we've got service design toolkits, the value of design to business. We've got about creating sustainable customer experiences, and we've got as many examples and resources as possible. And then we've got case studies. And as I said, the iceberg, we've got some on there, and there's many, many more coming. We don't want to put them all on at once. We want people to keep coming back and having a look for new things. And I'm just going to run through one or two and just give an example of some of the things as a sort of the end to what I'm talking about. So, Martyn's ice cream. So, Northern Ireland brand, and really weren't doing that well in terms of brand presence. Good product, not very well positioned. A classic thing where packaging wasn't very nice, the brand wasn't very good, and they worked with Invest Northern Ireland and some advice, and then that was something that developed over a period. It took about 4 months, and some of the case studies have lots of information and things like a bit of background to the project. So, and then we interview people. We've got videos on there. There's no standard ice cream in our market. We wanted to become the number one. That's what they wanted to do. How then could design help them? And designers really unpicked that problem, understood what it was, and tried to then reposition the brand, and then in doing that, make it perceived to be a more premium brand, but also more accessible across different sectors. So particularly getting it into new supermarkets. So it had a better, stronger brand presence. So it got into Sainsbury's, which it was aiming to do. It was in Tesco, and I'll give some of the facts and figures in a minute. So two new product stockets, 1,000% increase in sales in Tesco, and Tesco reported that, not Mullins. And various things happened, and then you can, each of the case studies have this. There's a video. I'm not going to play it because I was always worried about playing videos if it does or doesn't work. And then some testimonials. Richard Christie, who's from Invest Northern Ireland, he worked with Mullins to write that case study, and then there's comments. You can look at the comments, and then people are asking for more information. That's the type of thing that we want. We want people to be coming in and interacting. Some of these screen grabs were a couple of weeks ago, so more has happened since. And then I'm not going to talk about all of these. I'm just going to give some ideas. But Sugru is a material that you can use to fix things. It was a startup, and it was a very interesting case study, completely different about going from one person idea, how do I get that to market? And again, all that type of information is available for all of these case studies. And then you've got things like about a brand. So some of the things are not all about tangible products. They might be about developing the brand and ensuring that there is an appropriate positioning of that brand for the service or the product that is being provided. And some industrial equipment. So this was a Danish company that produced a really good industrial vacuum cleaner and was like way ahead in the market for years and years and years, but hadn't ever changed it. And they hadn't really looked at it from a user perspective. They looked at it from we have this technology, how do we sell it? And this project, this case study looks at, and this is over quite a long time actually, about a 3-year project. So some of these are short, a couple of months, some of them a lot longer. This one was about how do we provide the user with what they need? So they had to actually do some research rather than sit in their R&D office and go, this is what we're going to do. So it's about changing a mindset more than anything. And this one I put up because this is interesting. This is John Chisholm, one of my colleagues, and I worked on this as well. This is the start of a series of things. This is about a beginner's guide to accessing European funding for design. I was speaking to, I think, Alex last night, and I was saying, it is a minefield. I have people I work with who are experts on European funding and still don't understand all of this. So we're trying to provide a real starting level. How do people access money in European funding to support design? The reality is you have to do it by stealth. So most of it is not for design, it's for something else, and you have to ensure that design is part of that mix. So there's a series of case studies and examples of how people have done that and the challenges they've faced that are coming out. And then we've got design support programs. This is Estonia's Design Bulldozer program. I love that, the name. And it's about design charging forward. And this is a really successful support program. So some regions are really interested in looking at this model, and the Estonian Design Centre are one of the partners on the project. And the Lapland design program. Somebody went to Lapland to go, and I wanted to go and I couldn't. It's just to look at how actually this was supported by, this was led by a university, how they could get the understanding of design out there and then support that. So the Lapland design program is one of my favourite ones that we've done. So to wrap up, our ambitions for the future. So to validate the long-term goals, so I've said what the goal is, securing its future, and we want it to continue beyond the end of the funding. So we don't want Design for Europe to stop at the end of next year. And we put it as our top ambition. We're already lobbying the Commission to say, if this is important for Europe, you should continue to fund this. Whether they fund us to do it, that's not the point. They should fund the platform for Design for Europe. Because if they don't do that, then it can't be that important to them. So we really are working hard on that. And we're trying to get the reach out, the international recognition beyond the borders of Europe, but in areas also within Europe that maybe some of those understanding of design isn't so strong. We want 10,000 registered users. I can't remember the figures exactly because across the different media types, but please put it up a little bit today, and then, you know, tonight when you go home, or use the free Wi-Fi here, I'll give you the link in a moment. And we want contributions from all EU nations. You saw the map, there are some gaps. We are speaking to people, we just haven't got the tangible thing yet. And we've got some great speakers coming, you know, some of the world leading people in terms of design. We need the names to hook people in. We need the news stories. We recognise that, so we've got to get some big names in there. And really importantly, these independent forums that users like yourselves or other people who we're targeting will engage with. And that's happening, but it's not at the point that it's there yet. So register your interest. It's my call to arms. It's my end. Register your interest through the mailing list. Just go on the website, it says get involved. Click on it, you can register, you can find out things. Suggest to the platform, what should be on there? What is missing? And as I said, we have quite a complex plan. Some things are on their way. We didn't want to put them all up at once. Host an event or come to an event. You know, so you are hosting an event that we're at, so we're on our way there. And tell us what you'd like to see. Really important. That's why we're getting out there. So tell us what you want to see. There's hello at Design for Europe. Just remember Design for Europe. It'll get you there. You can go onto the website, and there's many ways you can get involved. All of the social media platforms are all available. So there is it. Visit designforeurope.eu, and thank you.